Hello,
Evening.
Ash.
Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you very much. You must be enjoying the Carry On that's playing here in Scotland.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, even when Sturgeon resigned, I thought it was terrific, but then it just seems to be getting worse every day. a new scandal every day just seems to be emerging, doesn't it? And it's so
Yes.
fantastic. It's so fantastic to see.
Absolutely, and it's given you no shortage of material for your regular YouTube broadcasts because Ash, you do a program. Well, you don't do a program, but you do regular videos every day. You're knocking out videos. How many are you putting out on average a day?
Put 4 out a day usually, unless something big happens. Then I might do a quick one just to get something out there. But yeah, usually 4 a day.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic work. And I noticed you had one up today, which was about people in Scotland actually wanting to shut Holyrood down. What was that one about?
Yeah, that was one I saw. In fact, if I said it's just the Express, then SNP voters would go, oh, that's rubbish then. But it was also the Herald and the Courier also receiving letters from people, not just who are unionists, but people who were SNP voters that wanted Holyrood closed down. Some of them were saying that the independence cause is finished anyway now because they believed that Salmon and Sturgeon were the only ones that could do anything to deliver it. And obviously they both failed. Some, of course, were unionists as well, saying that Holyrood wasn't worth the money that it costs anymore. It's a very expensive institution. And really, all it's done is let people down. It isn't there to serve the people anymore, is it? It isn't there to look after people who are struggling with energy bills, etc. It's simply there to promote the breaking up of the UK, which is not what a devolved administration should be doing.
That's right. All it's done is it's simply given a platform to an aggressively anti-UK party in order to grandstand and to promote its anti-unity, anti-solidarity, anti-British, often anti-English message, giving them a great platform to do that, but not anything that's actually improved our particular lives for the better. And so it's very easy to believe that things could just be, they'd either be the same or they'd be better if in fact we had if we didn't have it at all. Now of course the question is, we've got it and it's not going away, and the only way that we could get it to go away would be if we had a referendum really to get it to go away. I know some people might fantasize about, oh, somebody can just press a button and shut it down, but I don't see how politically feasible that would be really, not at this stage anyway. What would you agree with that, or do you think that the British government should take a much more sort of proactive approach on that?
I think for Westminster to intervene in any way in Holyrood, and whether it stays open or not, would simply play into the hands of Alex Salmond in the Alba Party and Humza Yousaf in the SNP. They would have the biggest weapon ever to turn round to everyone who may have supported independence in the past or still does, to say, oh, look what they're doing to us. They now want to take our parliament away, as well as blocking laws that we want to pass as well. So I don't think it'd be a wise move for Westminster to get involved. Well, the costs of running Holyrood are absolutely massive now. They cost more. I believe I read this somewhere. It costs more now for the MSPs, the Quangos, all the salaries, the expenses, than it does to actually run the building.
Really?
So it really is a very expensive institution. But no, I don't think it'd be right. Yeah, but I don't think it'd be right for Westminster to intervene at this point, because it, like I said, it would just, I believe it would actually promote independence rather than helping the unionist cause. But maybe people might think differently, but that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I can understand that happening, because you look at the fuss that they're able to generate if the British Parliament does something innocuous, such as knock back a particular law that is inappropriate for our United Kingdom, such as what they did with the GRR. And you look at the fuss that Humza Yousaf makes about that. Although somebody made a very good point to me today. They said, you know, when Humza Yousaf's talking about taking the... Because what he's going to do is, it looks like he's going to go to the court and contest the British Parliament for knocking back the GRR bill and for not allowing it to go ahead. Well, he's on to a loser there anyway.
Yeah.
But the argument that he's making is not anything substantial about the actual content of the GRR bill. He's not saying that this is what has to be done because it's fair to these particular people or something like that. The whole angle is Scotland's democracy denied. Okay, that's the line that he knows.
The same old tired and tested lines, isn't it?
Yeah. He thinks that's the angle that will appeal to people, rather than trying to say, children should be able to self-identify as whatever they want, you know. Instead of that angle, which he knows won't really get much support, he's going with the Scotland's democracy's been denied again sort of thing.
It's the same old Sturgeon lines, isn't it? It didn't work for her, so what makes him think that he's any better of a communicator than she was? Because he's not. And if she couldn't get it passed, and it brought her down in the end, as we both know, then what chance has he got? He's only doing this for the grievance manifesto, isn't it? But it's just he hasn't got anything original to say. He's made some mistakes in his political career. I mean, every job he's ever touched has turned into an absolute disaster. But I think taking this job as First Minister is his biggest mistake to date. He's walked into... He might have thought it'd be a difficult job to regain some support, possibly, because they were already dropping in the polls. But now all these scandals are coming out left, right and centre, some of which I can't prove and I'm not sure. I suspect he knows more about some of them than what he's letting on. But obviously he's telling us that he didn't know anything about all this stuff at the moment. But he has made a huge mistake here.
How do you see his future? How long do you think he's going to be in place, given the present circumstances?
I think he'll be lucky to see the next general election.
Really?
I think if he goes to the Supreme Court now with this gender bill, which he's saying he will do, fine. He's going to spend hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' money again on a wasted court case. He's going to send that Dorothy Bain down there, who, let's face it, she was absolutely hopeless when Sturgeon tried to get her to argue for a referendum. So much so that the SNP themselves had to write individual letters to the Supreme Court because they thought she was crap. So how she's going to get the gender bill through, I don't know. And once he's lost that, that's his grievance done. What's he got left? Absolutely nothing.
That's right. Well, what he might then do is, by that time, perhaps we'll be having a general election, and he'll be able to say, "Look at us. We went to the Supreme Court and we got turned down again. It was so terrible. This terrible English court. They love
yeah, that's court. It. Yeah.
Even though the guy in charge of it's a Scottish judge, and even though
that's right.
Even though when Sturgeon got turned down back last November, the panel of 5 judges were from each part of the UK. But that would be like another failure to add to his long list of failures. My own opinion is that the only reason that he'll last in that job is because nobody of any sense is going to want to take it on.
It's the ultimate poison chalice, isn't it?
Yeah. So even if he does continue to fail in it, even everybody's talking up Kate Forbes. I mean, I don't know. I think because she can string a few sentences together. I mean, basically that makes her special in the SNP. There's nothing like intrinsically remarkable about this woman. I've never read an article. Well, I know she writes articles, or somebody writes articles for her in the National. But in fact, there was one yesterday, but I couldn't be bothered reading it because it's like, who cares, basically. Anyway, she There's nothing special about her, or indeed any of these SNP people, and none of them will want to take on this poison chalice at this particular stage, not for a long while. So I see him being in there just kind of as a default figure, really. As a kind of, what's the phrase? Is it a whipping boy or somebody? You
scapegoat, isn't he?
Scapegoat. That's the phrase. Scapegoat.
Yeah, he's a scapegoat.
Yeah. Stick him in there, and who cares, kind of thing. That's how I see him, I have to say. But
it probably is. And then when he loses the next election and loses a load of seats, then they'll probably try and replace him. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but Kate Forbes has changed her lines a little bit today. She's been very critical of Humza Yousaf, not surprisingly, since he came in. But today she's calling for party unity. She's calling for them all to get behind him and march towards independence and all that usual rubbish, which says to me that she's quite happy to sit it out on the sidelines and watch him fail. Because if I was her, I'd be so relieved that I didn't win the election, that win the leadership contest, that I'd be happy to just sit there and watch the person who kicked me out the cabinet fail.
Yeah. They always do that, the SNP. They always go, oh, we need unity, and we need to come together. And it's like, yeah, we need unity, and we need to come together so that we can succeed in dividing the Scottish people against themselves. You know, it's a really ironic message that they've got. You know, only by uniting together can we successfully divide the people. Is basically the angle.
Of course.
That they take. You know, it's absurd.
That's one thing I'll say for Sturgeon, you know. Sorry to interrupt you. That's one thing I'll say for Sturgeon. Despite the fact I don't like her, she managed to keep a lot of divisions very, very secret, didn't she? Nobody really knew what was going on inside the party, even when people didn't see eye to eye on different things. It turns out recently that people like Kate Forbes, by the way, weren't even allowed in cabinet meetings. So they didn't even know what policies were being announced. So that's how she did it. She just didn't tell anybody what was going on, and she just made them all fall in line. And she did it very effectively. Whereas now she's gone, it's like a weight's been lifted off all these people's shoulders, and they're happy to speak out all over the place now about what's going wrong in the party. But the problem is, they've all got different views on everything. None of them seem to agree on anything. You've got your outcasts like Joanna Cherry, who will never be welcome in the party, and if they could get rid of them, they probably would. And then the other side, you've got your ultra-independence people that don't seem to agree with Humza Yousaf or Joanna Cherry. And then there's people like Stephen Flynn. If you can tell me what he believes in, then good luck to you, because he is the most inept politician I've seen speak in Westminster. Absolutely terrible. If you watch him stand there, he's got his arms by his side. He's like some little boy being told off by the headmaster in the office.
Yeah.
He looks absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you what he does believe in, and if I was him, I'd believe in it too, and that's my £84,144 salary.
Yeah.
Which is very nice money if you can get it, and that's a year. £84,000 a year for
plus
5
expenses.
Years. Plus huge expenses.
Yeah.
Huge expenses. You never need to worry about anything again, quite frankly. If you can become a MP for 5 years, put some money aside, you could probably retire for the next 20 years if you play your cards right. So that's what they do believe in, ultimately, I think. So yeah, great work if you can get it. And some people are just born in the right place at the right time, and they find themselves an MP down in Westminster. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, you made a great point before when you said that obviously the auditors have now quit the Westminster branch of the party as well. And those people are going to be audited even closer, I suspect, than the SNP in Holyrood. Because they're all being paid more than the SNP. Sorry, they're all being paid more than the Holyrood SNP. They're all being paid more in expenses than the MSP counterparts. The salary's £20,000 more for an MP than it is for an MSP. The travel costs are absolutely humongous. If you look at someone like Mary Black, Ian Blackford, I know they live further away than, say, an English politician, But their expenses, you're talking huge sums of money, £250,000, £300,000 expenses. Absolutely huge amounts of money.
Huge amounts of money, and all from us, from the British taxpayer as well, which is the most remarkable thing. We pay them to try to break up the country.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it?
Which kind of boils my proverbial, I have to say. Especially, I mean, you and I were grassroots activists, and we're trying to save the country, and like the British government don't care about us, but they'll give the SNP and allow the SNP to have like hundreds of thousands of pounds, each individual member of the SNP to have hundreds of thousands of pounds a year to destroy the country.
Yeah.
Just the way it works, I suppose. That's democracy for
yeah,
you.
I suppose so. It's sort of what we said last time, isn't it? It's had Westminster actually done their job from day one with Salmond, with Sturgeon, and all the rest of them, this would never have happened, because they'd have had the wings clipped many times, and they'd have known what they can do, what they can't do, what's devolved, what's not, instead of appeasing them left, right, and centre. And now they get kind of understandably really offended when Westminster actually do their jobs, because they're not used to it. But make no mistake, when Humza goes to the Supreme Court, if he does, Alistair Jack will have a watertight case against him. The UK government will have a watertight case against him, because otherwise they would never have taken the step in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point. That's a good point. The extent to which the SNP, because the SNP have to be trained as like, this is how devolution works. You know, it's quite right that certainly, for example, within the United Kingdom, we do respect the voice of the Scottish Parliament, but we respect it within the overall voice of the British Parliament.
Yeah.
And that's a reflection of we're respecting the voice of the Scottish people within the overall context of the voice of the British people as expressed through our collective parliament. That's the way it works. So sometimes the voice of Holyrood might have to get overridden by the louder voice of all the people of the United Kingdom. There's nothing sinister about that. That's the way that devolution works.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not in a separated Scotland at this time. If we were in a separated Scotland and somehow the British Parliament was laying down the law, then you could complain, because that wouldn't be right. But so long as you're part of a devolved structure where the British Parliament is ultimately the final say, because it represents all the people of the United Kingdom, then you can't complain about that unless you're deliberately trying to misrepresent the nature of devolution, which of course is what they're trying to do. So
yeah.
They have to be trained to understand it properly. And from the very get-go, that's not really been properly done. Even when Labour were in charge. I mean, Labour had an easy run because there was a Labour administration at Holyrood while they had a Labour government at Westminster. So
yeah.
There was really no tension there. There was really no political tension there. And so there was never any need for the Labour Party at the time to explain what devolution was and how it was meant to work. And then when the Tories came in under Cameron and so on, well, they didn't have a clue about anything. I mean, Cameron didn't even know what the Magna Carta was, let alone what devolution in a British Constitution is. I mean, he was literally, when you look back, you have to understand the extent to which that these folk at the time were utterly clueless. And we think, oh, politician, in Westminster, he's on the telly, he must be clever. No, they're not.
No, he wasn't. These people are educated at some of the finest schools in the world. You wouldn't think it, would you? People like David Cameron. Him and George Osborne were an absolute disaster for this country. I mean, so was Blair, don't get me wrong. We had a series of terrible governments.
Yes.
But, in fact, it's continued ever since, I think. We've had really bad governments ever since. But, yeah, Cameron was absolutely awful. And then when he came out and made... just when I thought the SNP were on the decline a few years ago, was it David Cameron that came out and said, the Queen was purring in Buckingham Palace because the Scots have voted to stay in the UK? Why would you say something so So stupid.
Yes, he should have kept his mouth shut on that particular issue. I did read this article today by Hamza Yusuf in the National, which I read so that other people don't have to. And he's saying that we are predicting his and the SNP's demise, but guess what? They're not going to demise. And he says something which always puzzles me, and lots of SNP people say it, and I'll just read it out. He's talking about Scotland, and he's going, quite rightly, he's saying, Scotland has brilliant entrepreneurs and a tech sector which attracts international attention. We have some of the most significant energy resources on the continent. We have world-class universities and colleges, and on some measures we have the most highly educated workforce in Europe. To which I would add, yeah, thanks to the Union, thanks to being part of the United Kingdom. Okay, but he doesn't. These are all the positives that they always talk about that we enjoy here in Scotland. It is thanks to the Union.
Yeah,
that's why
it's devolution settlements, Barnett consequentials. How would Scotland, no offence to Scotland, it's a relatively small country, say, compare it to England, how would it ever, or the rest of the UK, for example, how would it ever pay for free hospital parking, free tuition fees, free prescriptions if it left the UK? There'd be no devolution settlements or anything like that. So, like you said, rightly, everything they name just supports the Union. It's like they don't seem to understand this.
Yeah. Well, apparently what they would do, according to the Green Party and some of the wilder shores of the Scottish National Party, and probably the Labour Party as well, is they're going to tax all the rich people. Well, I've lived in Scotland all my life, and I've never... I think I've met one person that I would classify as rich. You know, they're not exactly 10 a penny here in Scotland. And you've got to remember, Scotland's it's a small population. Right?
Yeah.
It's growing every day, if my bus journey into town is anything to go by. But it's, leaving that controversy aside, normally without that particular element of growth, you're looking at just slightly over 5 million people.
Yeah.
And it's been like that for a long time. And most of the population is around the Central Belt. And it does not have a high proportion of very rich people that can be taxed. And remember, if you are a very rich person, you've got lots of options, and you don't have to hang around on one side.
You take that money out, don't you?
Yeah, you take it out, or you move your business, or sometimes you just have to move your business address. You don't even have to move yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so it's ignorant to imagine that we're going to get all this new money by taxing people in Scotland.
It doesn't work. And even Westminster are doing something similar, like stealth taxing and things like that. But if you look at, there's a good article about Norway going around at the moment, if you look, and a lot of the wealthy in Norway are now moving to other countries around the continent, or even to London, for example, to set up businesses, because they've raised all the taxes on the wealthy. Sorry, there's rumours now that Hamza Yusuf wants to bring in another level of tax in Scotland, up to 45 pence at the top rate of tax, and it's already higher than your brothers and sisters down in England, for example. So how much more high do you think they're going to raise it? And if you can't take an example from a country like Norway, which for a moderately sized country is very successful business-wise and economically, if they're losing now huge amounts of wealth because of increasing taxes, then take that lesson. Don't copy a system that's blatantly broken. So whatever wealth they have, like McVitie's, you remember all that scandal, they'll just move. They'll take their businesses elsewhere, whether it's across the border to Carlisle or something, and they'll pay less tax. Why wouldn't you if you ran a business or if you had millions of pounds in the banks? You're not going to stay somewhere voluntarily that's going to tax you even more than anywhere else, are you?
No. It's a losing game. I played a losing game, and that's what they're certainly doing. It's I can't believe that's almost top of the hour, actually. So we'll have to call our wee chat to an end. Ash, thank you very much for coming on.
Can I just say one more thing quickly?
Go ahead. Yeah.
There's a comment just appeared, and if your producer can put it up, it is a blatant lie from someone called IndieRef. Totally, absolutely untrue. Scotland does not send more money down to the rest of the UK than it gets back from Westminster. Just look at the facts, look at the figures, and it's just because the money goes missing under the SNP that you think Scotland sends more than it gets back, but it's blatantly not true. I just wanted to get that in there.
I'm glad you got that in there, and I'm glad you got that off your chest. And from a unionist perspective, even if that were the case, unionist people would say, well, hooray, because that's what the union is about. The union is about sharing our resources, and many times it may be that England sends more to Scotland. Sometimes Scotland might be sending more to England, but so what? Because at the end of the day, we're all British, and the point of the union is to share our resources. So
exactly,
even if that were the case, we unionists would say hooray to that. And
I wasn't saying Scotland doesn't contribute. Of course it does. I'm not saying that at all.
Exactly.
It's just blatant lies like that.
Yeah, it's misrepresentation. Thanks for clearing that up, Ash. Now, if people want to watch your videos, and I do suggest that people subscribe to Ash's YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/that Preston Journalist, and follow Ash also on twitter.com/AKWriting88. That's fantastic. Ash, more power to your elbow, and well done with your YouTube channel. I know it's gone from strength to strength, and you've got viewers. You put out a video, and an hour later it's got 3,000 views. That's what we call good going. So thanks, Ash. We'll get you back on as soon as we can, and we'll be in touch.
Yep. Thank you, Alistair, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye now.